Hello, I'm Richard Ridge. We're at the opening night party for Yasmina Reza's new play called God of Carnage, which is playing at the Bernard B. Jacobs Theater. The English translation is done by Christopher Hampton and is directed by Matthew Warchus. This four-hander stars Jeff Daniels, Hope Davis, Marcia Harden, and James Gandolfini.
Well, I've been Yasmina's translator since art, really, so that's for more than 10 years. And this play was commissioned by a German theatre, a Swiss theatre actually, in Zurich. And so I went to see it there, and in German, and then I went to see Yasmina's production in Paris. And actually, Yasmina's production in Paris and our production in London were pretty well simultaneous, which was interesting. And now we've done a rather radical thing. We've moved it from France to America. That's to say, the characters are Americans. They're not French anymore. All her other plays, we left the characters back in Paris, but this time we thought the story was so universal that we recited it in Brooklyn.
Henry was in a lot of pain last night. He was being driven crazy by the noise that the hamster was making. And to tell you the truth, I've wanted to get rid of it for a while now. So I said to myself, okay, that's it, and I took it and I put it in the street. Now, I thought they loved gutters and trains and all that, but I guess not, because it just sat there, paralyzed on the sidewalk.
It's great to be here. It's a very exciting city to do plays in. The audience for both these plays, Boing Boing and now for God of Carnage, they're such a voluble, noisy bunch, and the audience is much quieter in more well-behaved and in not necessarily the right way in London. And here you do a play like this, it's got a lot of volatility and a lot of savagery and a lot of hilarity in it, and you hear not only big laughs but great whoas and gasps, and I like that. It makes for almost a sporting event in the theatre.
A man ought to give the impression that he's alone, if you ask me. I mean, that he's capable of being alone. I also have a John Wayne-ish idea of virility. And what was it he had? A Colt 45. A device for creating a vacuum. A man who can't give the impression that he's a loner has no texture. You're happy, aren't you, Michael? I play one of the two moms, this character, Annette, the more seemingly kind of passive member of the quartet. I read the play and I just thought it was a really dark kind of treatise on human nature and what really lurks under the kind of politeness that people kind of banter back and forth. And I found it to be really fascinating. And as we've worked on the play, we've all fallen more in love with the play. I wish Yasmina were here tonight because it's really her play. That's what we're all working on, and it's been an amazing experience.
Yes, I stand up for civilization, and it is lucky there are people prepared to do that. Do you think being a Neanderthal is a better idea?
Come on now, come on!
Is it normal to criticize someone for not being a Neanderthal?
No one's saying that. No one's criticizing you.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
What were we supposed to do? Sue you? Not speak to each other and try and slaughter each other with insurance claims?
Stop it, Ronnie.
Stop what?
You're blowing things out of proportion.
I don't give a You force yourself to rise above petty-mindedness and you end up humiliated and completely on your own.
Yes.
You know, it's an opening night on Broadway. It just feels like a gift, actually, to be here in the city and working and doing a play that's about something, but about something in a non-pedantic way, I think, using incredible humor. Absolutely the finest direction possible with Matthew Warchus, and Yasmina's writing is beautiful. And then we had Christopher Hampton translate. And then we have this cast. It's just like you just keep going up these levels, and that we get to be a part of it, that I get to be a part of it, feels great.
What do you mean made aware of his responsibilities?
I'm sure your son is not a savage.
Of course, Benjamin isn't a savage.
Yes, he is.
Alan.
Why say something like that?
He's a savage.
Well, how does he explain his behavior?
He doesn't want to discuss it.
But he ought to discuss it.
He ought to do any number of things. He ought to come here, he ought to discuss it, he ought to be sorry for it. Clearly you have parenting skills that put us to shame. We hope to improve, but in the meantime, please bear with us.
Come on, it's an idiotic. Let's go with it.
It feels like I'm back home. It really has been, you know, I started out in New York, and Kathleen and I, we were here about 5 years before we moved back to Michigan, where we raised our 3 kids and started the Purple Rose Theater Company. But I've always kind of hoped that when the kids all went to college, which they all are now, that I'd get to come back and do this. And this came to me over Thanksgiving, and I just said, oh, I got to do this. What perfect timing for me.
Courtesy is a waste of time. It weakens you. It undermines you.
All right, well, come on, Annette, let's go. Enough preaching and sermons for today.
Go on, go. Can I say one thing? Having met you two, it's pretty clear that for, what's his name, Benjamin, there are mitigating circumstances.
When you murdered that hamster.
Murder?
Yes.
I murdered the hamster.
Yes, you have done your best to make us feel guilty, but your virtue went straight out the window once you decided to be a killer.
I absolutely did not murder the hamster.
Worse, you left it, shivering with terror in a hostile environment.